Well, hello everybody. I was hoping to get a little break between now and Thanksgiving. However, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Today is Thursday, November 21st. Um, yeah, the Democrats and the media and the left, they are not playing nice. I want to start with a little history lesson around Mabel Matos School. Mabel Matos School is a school that I fought for probably a good 13, 14 years in Milpitas, California, where I was a school board member. But prior to being a school board member, I was involved in the PTA, and I was also, moving up in the PTA world as well. Anyway, so Mabel Matos is a school in Milpitas right now that didn't exist at the time. We had a large section of town that was all industrial, and it was part of the redevelopment plan in the city of Milpitas. And what they were going to do, they bought up almost all his manufacturing buildings, and they tore them all down, and they were going to build high density housing there. The plan was to build it out with all high density housing. However, our school system could not support that. So, even as a PTA member, I recognized the fact that our capacity of the schools was somewhat limited. So, we started the fight then to get a portion of what they called a park, at least 3 acres, set aside for Mabel Matos School. Um, there was a big fight because the redevelopment agency was dissolved, and the property went over to a follow-on agency which was supposed to dispose of the property. Well, it seems that the city manager wanted to sell that property for as much as he could get for it, without giving the school 1 square inch for a school. And, that was a very interesting situation. So, what I did is I told the mayor that if he wasn't going to give in and help us out with this school property, I was going to run for mayor. I was going to run against him as he was up for reelection. And that was going to be the main point of my campaign, was because he was against the schools. He didn't like that idea, so the minute I filed my papers, he went into negotiation with the school district, and eventually we won that. But the city manager was bound and determined to sell that property to a local private school, and so that they could build a private school there. This letter, which you can only see a portion of it, but you can see the important part. Jonathan M. Eisenberg, Deputy Attorney General for the state of California, sent this letter to the city manager who was trying to dispose of the McCandless property. And basically, what it said was, if you sell it to anybody other than the school district, which has a right to first dibs on this property because it is owned by the city. It was purchased with tax dollars from the people of the city. So the agencies within the city had first dibs on purchasing that property. And we needed it for school because they were going to bring in thousands of students into an area that had no school, which would overload the neighborhood schools, which were never intended to have that many kids in it. So, yeah, we're talking about thousands of kids. So, anyway, Kamala Harris did sign off on that, preventing the sale to anyone else other than one of the agencies within town. The interesting thing is here I see it's approximately $9 million was the valuation of the entire piece of property. We ended up buying 3 acres. Now, bear in mind, because I was running against the mayor, I pulled myself off of the negotiation team. I was the president of the school board, so I pulled myself off the negotiation team to run against the mayor, and I was going to just jam this up his yaha. Anyway, the negotiating team that did take over agreed to pay $21 million for 3 acres. $7 million an acre is a travesty, total travesty. Anyway, we got the school. The school exists. It's there. But it was a very interesting point of history. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Let's see, what else we got going on here today? So this came up in my Facebook stuff. You know, she did one good thing. She signed off on this letter as Attorney General for the state of California. Okay. I guess her good things are over with now. Matt Gaetz. They were going after Matt Gaetz. Go figure. So they went after Matt Gaetz. How credible can this be? If Biden's DOJ decided not to go after him, they went to the court of public opinion with everything that was in this file, which was not going to be released, which got released under the covers somehow, so to speak. And now Matt Gaetz has effectively withdrawn his name from being Attorney General for the United States. Lawfare. We've got to get past this. This is terrible. So anyway, so that's that story. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. I'm sure there's going to be more news to that effect, but this is just terrible. Here we go. This is interesting. Governor Abbott doubles down in the state of Texas versus the cartels and the gangs that have flooded into our country. So let's take a look.
Welcome back. There are now 1.4 million illegal migrants in the United States who are subject to deportation orders by immigration judges, but they have not yet been removed from the country. Only 13,000 are being held in ICE custody. This as President-elect Trump confirms he is preparing to declare a national emergency and use the military as part of his mass deportation effort. The state of Texas also now offering the second Trump administration 1,400 acres of land to stage that mass deportation operation and to build a facility for processing, detention, and coordination. Texas Land Commissioner Dawn Buckingham provided land in Starr County, which the state purchased from the ranch owner last month. Trump flipped Starr County red in the presidential election for the first time in over 100 years. Joining me right now is the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Governor, great to see you.
Oh, you too. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you so much for all that you've done in your efforts to secure this country and, of course, the state of Texas. Give us your sense of what this deportation program will look like and how you will be assisting President Trump in doing so.
So, listen, this is going to be a very robust deportation program by the President Trump, by Tom Homan, who's
yep.
going to do the borders are. Listen, as you pointed out earlier, there's more than 1.4 million people who have been identified who are on the removal list. And so that's a great starting point. But I know from Homan, I know from Trump that what they really want to do is make sure that they target all of the criminals who are inside our country, which is an extraordinarily large number, posing a danger to people in the United States. Get those criminals out. And, Maria, no, we have terrorists who came across the border who are walking around our country. We have to have an urgency to identify them, target them, and deport them. But we got to do several things at the very same time. While we're working on deporting the people, we also have to be equally successful at denying illegal entry. That includes putting up the barriers and doing everything possible to prevent anybody from crossing between a port of entry. And then after that, Maria, we also have to be very aggressive, because even if we have great security of the border itself, we're going to have the cartels, the MS-13s, the Tren de Araguas that work their way into the United States. And so this is going to require ongoing vigilance by Texas, by other states, as well as by the Trump administration.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point, because while you all are preparing to, implement this deportation, we've got more people coming right now.
Exactly.
As we sit there. So Texas is reportedly planning to expand those floating buoy border barriers in anticipation of this migrant surge ahead of Trump's inauguration. Tell me what it looks like today at the border. And, you keep pushing back. I mean, the Biden administration tried to get you to remove these buoys.
Right.
And you held firm. Are they effective in keeping people out, and where are the plans going now?
So these buoys were designed by the Border Patrol because they were, in fact, effective at denying illegal entry. And they gave them to Biden to put into the river himself. And Biden said he wouldn't use them. I said, well, I'll use them. And I put them in the river. And as soon as I put them in the river, Joe Biden files a lawsuit to put a stop to it. And I told Joe Biden to stick it, that we are keeping the buoys in the river. They've remained in the river ever since then. What we're doing this morning, we are expanding those buoys in the river. They are completely effective at denying illegal entry, and a byproduct that costs less than building a border wall, which Texas is doing also. So this is a way to expand our protection, or preventing people from entering into the state of Texas at a lower cost.
It's just unbelievable what has happened. I don't understand what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were thinking to have this wide open border and all these people coming in that are unvetted. And now we understand, because of this hearing of Mr. Ibarra, who reportedly, allegedly killed Laken Riley in Georgia. The only reason that he was an illegal, the reason he was in Georgia is because he was offered a paid-for flight from Biden to go to Georgia.
Yeah, by you and all the taxpayers across the country.
We paid for it.
Yeah, we pay for it. The same thing happened in Houston, Texas. We had a 12-year-old girl who was accosted, bound, raped, and murdered by Tren de Aragua. This is something that's been happening across the country. Listen, I took action on this, Maria, because I signed a law that I invoked this September, where I declared Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization. We're using every law enforcement tool in the state of Texas, where we are arresting these Tren de Aragua members, putting them behind bars, sending the message to Tren de Aragua they picked on the wrong state when they came into the state of Texas.
I was so gratified when you did that. Thank you for doing that. I mean, because walking around in New York, you're looking behind you, because they're running around all states.
Exactly.
We saw them in Colorado. They're in New York. And, of course, they're originating in Texas, coming right over the border from Venezuela. I want to get your take on these executive orders that you've issued. Governor, you issued a pair of executive orders this week to protect Texas from the Chinese Communist Party. Now, this is a subject we are all over on this program, have been for many years. This protects Texas from the CCP's espionage operation by directing all state agencies and public higher education institutions to harden state systems, safeguard critical infrastructure. The other EO combats coordinated harassment and coercion by the CCP, directing the Texas Department of Public Safety to target and arrest any criminals executing Chinese influence operations. You've noted the possible presence of a Chinese police service station in Houston.
Right.
Tell us how the CCP has been able to infiltrate the state of Texas.
So a lot of Americans really are unaware of the extent to which China uses people operating in states to try to co-opt the states so that they will be able to infiltrate the United States even more.
Well, I do have some experience in this area. I once worked for a Chinese company in Sunnyvale, California called MP World. I was the QA manager for MP World, and I worked there for approximately a year. That's about all I could take. Now, this company in um, in Sunnyvale was owned by Phil and Miranda Lau, and I was really the only American Caucasian that worked there. Um, there were a lot of Chinese people there. There were probably about 200 employees working over a couple of shifts. Um, it was very interesting working there. Um, I know that we did have some high-tech customers who used to have surface mount PC boards made there, and what we our specialty was as a contract assembly house was wire and cable, PC boards, and assembly of computer devices. So you can imagine the people who came in to do business with us, and there were some high-profile companies that came to us looking to contract with us, that I thought was rather risky from a national security standpoint, to have them do the work for us, because there were constant movement between China and Sunnyvale, California, of the management of this company. And they did own a company in China that also did semiconductor work. So it's very interesting how they do this. But I do know that on occasion they would send people from the accounting office down to the Mexico border, pick up more workers. They would have people come in from China on training visas to do work, to wind very high-profile windings, coils for certain electronics companies throughout the Bay Area that they couldn't get anywhere else. And they would work these people 12, 14, 18 hours a day, in some instances, as much as they could. And then they would send them back to China. So, yeah, I do have a little bit of information there. Bridge Communications was one of our customers. They built cloud phone systems, which were very popular down in South America. And I would imagine now they're pretty popular all across China as well. Whether Bridge Communications knows that they were built in China, I don't know. And that was, Bridge Communication was founded in 1981, and they were sold in 1987 to what is now 3Com. So somewhere in there, I worked as the QA manager and worked with Bridge Communications. I remember working with them on their networking modules that would go up on telephone poles throughout South America. Very interesting. Anyway, he's absolutely right. What he's saying here, pay attention to, because he is right on the money. This is exactly what they do. So let's continue on.
Espionage is just a part of it. First is coercing people who may be, let's say, in the state of Texas, who are dissidents from China. And what China tries to do to rein them in and try to get them to go back to China is to target them. And we've had people targeted under a program that's implemented by the country of China, by the CCP, targeting people in the state of Texas. And I said that we're going to arrest anybody involved in the CCP, anybody involved in this program who's going after Texans. So we're We got China going after people in Texas. We got China going after our intellectual property in our universities as well as in other areas. We have China going after our power grid. Texas has by far the largest power grid in the entire United States of America. We produce more than twice the power of the second and third states in the United States. If our power grid is shut down by the CCP, it would be totally catastrophic for the country of the United States. And then, of course, we have the largest oil field in the United States, the third largest oil field in the world. And all of these things are ways in which China could pose an extreme harm on the United States of America. We must harden our assets, harden our capabilities of fighting back against China and the CCP trying to infiltrate into the state of Texas.
You have been so tough on all of the issues that matter to the American people, Governor. Again, thank you for that. Let me just get your take, though, on why we've seen no pushback whatsoever from the current administration. I mean, you're talking about fentanyl flowing through, and the underlying components are in China. You're talking about intellectual property theft for decades. You're talking about, 50,000 Chinese nationals coming through the southern border, surveillance, espionage, and yet, they're getting into our military installations as well, and yet
Exactly.
Joe Biden did nothing about it.
Listen, Biden either doesn't know or doesn't care. Either way, it's been horrible for America. America got set back during the 4 years of the Biden administration. And that, I believe, is one reason why Donald Trump did more than win. He had a landslide victory. Americans, for one, didn't like the woke leftism, the girls and boys and girls sports.
That's right.
And the open border policies, but they also saw how America was more endangered internationally, whether it be with China, whether it be with Russia or whoever. They were asleep at the wheel on international affairs. Donald Trump will course correct that immediately.
Now, one way that the CCP infiltrates this country, and as Mike Pompeo has said to me many times, have gotten inside the gates of America is through universities.
Correct.
And I want to get your take on this because some people are worried that your executive order did not include getting Texas out of the state-sponsored universities and the related institutions, the employee retirement systems, where they're holding all these Chinese stocks that are trading on our U.S. exchanges.
So we're doing two things about that. One that we're doing is we're prohibiting universities as well as state agencies from having any contract with China or any business that's connected to China whatsoever. And that's big. But if you would stay tuned to an announcement that we will make tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the requirements that we are imposing on the university investment process to make sure that we are divesting from any investment in China or any business connected with China.
There are some analysts on Wall Street who think that we're going to see legislation on a federal level once Trump gets in to actually potentially delist those companies, those stocks, because it basically has investors unwittingly or wittingly funding the expansion of our number one enemy.
Right. Well, funding that, but also just from an investment standpoint, you have to look at risks. You got financial risks, you have political risks. Both of those risks are paramount as it concerns an investment.
Well, let me say this. Let me thank the governor and Maria for being on the show today, and at least kicking open the door for this discussion. But if there is a hole in our freedom somewhere, the Chinese will find a way to get in. They will become citizens if necessary in order to infiltrate what's going on here and then transfer that information through normal travel. So we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful about what we do and how we do it. So companies that have ties to Chinese companies, partnerships and so forth, and funding is usually by cash. They use a lot of cash. I can attest to that. I walked into the controller's office one day and her desk was covered with probably 12-inch stacks high of $100 bills. And, oh, you shouldn't be in here. You shouldn't be in here. Well, yeah, I figured that out pretty quick. So anyway, we need to be careful. Well, thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys. You have a happy Thanksgiving. I'll probably be back on here again. And we will see you then. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.